Well, hello everyone out there, and welcome to another episode of A Way Through Inquiry Series with Michelle Terrill-Heath. We're discussing some of her incredible Substacks. So if you haven't read them yet, go on over to the Substack and look up Michelle Heath or look at the link below, and you can see where to access some of these inquiry series. We have a ton of them on YouTube. So we got Michelle Heath here today. How are you, Michelle?
Hello, I'm good.
Good. And we're going to talk about this part two of the dementia series, and the part one covered patients. And now we're going to dive into caregivers. And let's go ahead and just jump right off that cornice, as the title says, just get right into the downhill ski of this conversation. And
Right
I
on.
think the first question I really wanted to bring up is the mortality rate of caregivers. I found so shocking that actually, like, caregiving can kill you.
That's right. It's amazing, isn't it? It's shocking, and what I will say is I think it shocked me, and it shocks most people, because when you become a family caregiver overall, like my mom was for her mother, for my grandmother, um, and various people I know have been for their parents or their spouses or their disabled children or different things. You just kind of take the role of like, "I'm okay, they're not okay. So I'm gonna step up in every way." And there's an assumption that you're gonna stay okay. And these statistics show that that's not always the case. So I think that that was totally a shock, and and we can go from there.
Yeah, 63%. Isn't that insane? That's like more than half. I mean, chances are that you will pass away before the person that you're caregiving for. So that's quite astonishing. And I mean, we were just talking a little bit about like human care, what goes into human care. You were explaining, like, let's just talk for just a second, talk about caregiving, because I think it'll really signal for people who are caregiving and people who aren't to understand what it takes 24 hours. So go for it. You were just telling me meal prep,
So
all that. Like, I mean, what?
caregiving is the caregiving you do when you're a full-time caregiver for somebody with a incurable situation, disease or a fatal disease in some cases is 24/7 because it never stops because you never know what's gonna happen. So, even though most nights I get a good night's sleep, there's been many, many nights where I don't, and that's because of caregiving. Because I have to get up to change the bed, or I have to get up to change the situation or help my patient to the toilet, or they're having their REM sleep disorder, so they're screaming out in their sleep, or, any number of things. And then during the day, the same thing. You're maybe it happened to us once we were coming back from a trip, and everything's so trial and error. You learn as much as you can, but because the state of wellness and sickness is always fluid and changing, uh, things happen.
Yeah.
And so Andy fell, and so immediately after we'd just gotten back from this big trip, we were right to the emergency room, and this is the life of a caregiver, is you have to be
Yeah.
on call and flexible. So there are times when you're living your own life. I tell people I love my life. I get up in the morning, I do my writing, I I love being with Andy, I but that said, there is no real period of time, other than a very short period of time, where I'm not on call.
That's correct. And also, it sounds like there needs to be some training involved. I mean, that's kind of part of what we'll probably be discovering with Medtronic and stuff is what's the training for people who just have to be thrust into caregiving like this, and particularly around dementia, because dementia has its own things that are coming up. Can you describe a little bit about what the distinction is? Because you just kind of described caregiving, but what is the difference between the caregiver with somebody who has dementia?
Caregiving with dementia is different for sure than caregiving without dementia. And but that said, n dementia is different for everybody too. So, there's no one way or one lesson you can learn about caregiving for dementia. What I would say, what comes to my mind is the most important part of caregiving for somebody with dementia is to, at all times, remind yourself and remember and remind other people around you that that person is still there. That person is still themselves, and maybe they can't think in the same way as they used to be able to, but they're still there feeling, and they're still there thinking, they're still a human being. And so even though you might not be able to find the person you used to know within that body, that person is there.
Yeah.
So don't give up on them, and don't forget how important it is to for you as a caregiver to keep looking, looking until you find the person within that confused mind. And for me, with Andy, his dementia is very, very minor compared to what I hear about people with Alzheimer's, and where they don't know who they are, or who the people are, or what's going on. Andy's not like that at all. But he does get confused about certain things, and it's my job to help him with those things. And also to give him the respect that I would want, even if I don't have dementia. If I get confused about something, I don't want somebody belittling me and telling me, "Ugh, here's what you do," or something.
We definitely all get confused, that's for sure, especially in this time we're all living in right now. So, one thing let's just build off of that for just a second too, because I want to, continue off the dementia because we are doing this dementia two-part series. What is different? Because, of course, you want to see the person as they are and treat them with respect. I heard all that. But what I'd like to hear is like, what is different, like in your 24-hour period? I mean, obviously, dementia people forget stuff, so that can be scary. I mean, at any point in time.
The difference, I can immediately answer it.
Cool.
The difference is that you can't count on them for the same things you used to be able to. So you have to be much more on point as far as what is actually going on and what is needed.
Mm.
So a person with, extreme dementia, I heard about this from a caregiver just recently, online, who I'm in a bunch of caregiver groups. She said her husband, in the middle of the night, she was sleeping, and he got up and walked outside in the freezing cold of Wisconsin winter. And she woke up and found him missing, found the front door partway open. The dog was also missing. And she found him, down the road. She got in her car and is looking for him. And she found him, like, laying down in the ditch in the freezing cold. And unbelievably, the dog was laying on top of him.
Wow.
And he was not dead, and she somehow got him to the hospital, and he lived. The dog did not live long, the dog was older, but, like, so that's not her fault.
Of course.
That's just something that happens with dementia. That's an extreme case of extreme dementia and an extreme worry. On a lighter note, um, you know, I can come upstairs and Andy's staring at his at our sink, the bathroom sink, and he's staring at it, trying to figure out where his pills are, and his pills are right in front of him. And he'll say, "Where are my pills?" And I'll say, "Oh, here they are, right here." And he's like, "Oh, great."
Right.
So you just have to be even more flexible and understanding. And it's not like he can never find his pills again. It's
Right.
like he'll find them all the time, but then things will just come up like that. Or
Yeah.
somebody might put, you know, butter on their eggs instead of their toast, or
Yeah.
things like that. They kinda know what they're doing, but it's a little off.
It's interesting that you say count on because I sense a little bit of like return to childhood in some ways because like as a child rearing, you can't really count on a child to know when the stove is hot or, know when to go outside without clothes or so. I mean, it's a little bit like you're parenting again, which you've had some experience with. And at the same time, as every parent has experienced, can also be terrifying. And on that note, I'd like to just go right into the terrifying part of the Substack, which is your ability and Andy's ability and the family's ability really to access the inaccessible and make the impossible possible. And that goes to the title of this, which is Jumping Off Cornices. Do you want to just describe to me a little bit about the story, just very quickly about
Sure.
what happened with Brendan and why that applies to this topic?
When our son, your brother, Brendan, was, 3 years old, we'd had him skiing since he was 2, and we decided to try to take him up to Kachina Peak, in a backpack, because there's no way he could hike that off, piste terrain. So, take him up there and ski down, and it was we thought we could do it, but we didn't know. Nobody had ever done that before. And we did it. And we ran into some troubles. Some clouds came in, it got cold. The snow wasn't smooth. It was very kind of rough crud type snow. And and we actually started in a steeper place. We could have gone further, but the clouds were coming in. It was getting really cold, and so we went over a cornice instead of up higher where we could have gone a gentler route in. But in any case, I just came up with the analogy that living with Andy now with dementia is like jumping over cornices. You don't really know what's going to happen, and you can be all in shape for skiing. You can have jumped over a million cornices before and been successful. You can have a lot of experience with, you know, with ungroomed snow and like out of bounds terrain. But all those things said, when you actually take the jump, you don't really know what's going to happen. And so I feel like dementia is a lot like that because but you don't have the option. You have to take the jump.
You're pushed off,
You
basically.
do have to go, and that was how it was with Brendan. The clouds were coming in, it was getting windy, it was getting cold. We couldn't walk back down, we had to go. And so I feel like some of the things you set yourself up for as much success as possible, learning about your family patient's condition and preparing yourself for things that could happen. And yet, the thing with dementia is it requires an enormous amount of creativity. You just have to really be able to think outside of the box and go, all right, so if I'm going to take my husband with me to go to California to visit our family at an Airbnb, what are the things I need to do to make that successful?
Yeah.
And then when things come along um, that are not expected, am I gonna have the wherewithal and the creativity to come up with the right choices? And turns out, yep, for so far. Um,
That let me circle back a little bit back to the very beginning about that statistic, that terrifying statistic that we are talking
yep,
about. And in the Substack, really quickly, you do mention you had a pity party. Your mom has told you to have pity parties once in a while, so that's good, but don't let it go on too long. That was a great a piece of advice for all of us. Have a pity party. Don't get stuck in it. And I think some of the things that you list in here are ways that help you get down off the cornice and down the pist, right? Even
yep.
if you're 2 years old. Do you want to cover those a little bit? Because it seems like those are the things that will keep caregivers resilient and keep them alive. And some of them happened in the Substack. I won't give it away. You have to read the actual story, but maybe Michelle, you can tell me what you learned from that experience and with the family.
From the experience with Brendan, is
No, 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 no. From the experience when you were in Hawaii and when the family was all together and you asked for help and you needed a break, and then Brendan came in and Alana came in and they heard you and you learned something.
yeah,
Right? So that's
that's
what
where we go.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so here's what I would say is everybody always tells you ask for help, and partly the answer is yeah, right. Who's going to help me?
Mm,
This is a job nobody wants,
mm,
and that's the terror.
that's huge. That's huge, actually.
That's the terror. But in actuality, what happens is unexpected things happen. And people step up who you never expected to step up. And so, for instance, uh, in the time that I was very frustrated, that whole trip, somebody stepped up more than anybody else. And it was Jason, my
Mm,
new son in law,
mm,
your new brother in law. And I didn't expect that from him, mostly because he doesn't know us that well.
mm,
And what happened was, in the moment that I write about in the Substack, which I won't give away, other people stepped up, everyone stepped up. But then what happened was from then on, for the whole rest of the trip, Jason was constantly holding Andy's arm, asking to sit next to him, s giving up on the tour so that he could sit with Andy. hanging out with Andy on the bench because Andy couldn't walk as far to see the cool sight. Um, Sitting with Andy at the hot spring instead of going in.
Mm.
And he was just taking that role, and I didn't have to ask him. He just did it.
Wow.
And I never would have expected that, and I never would have asked him. And so that was a really magical moment for me to go, "Oh, people step up. They really do." But you do have to ask. You do have to recognize your vulnerabilities. And what I would say the hopeful part is that over and over and over, unexpected people step up.
Hmm.
And with dementia, without dementia, in caregiving in general, it's like you can't figure out who's gonna help you and who it's not unless you pay them. If you pay a home health aide, they'll be there. But in friends and in family, it really you just have to trust that that will happen, and if it doesn't happen, then you have to ask.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, when it comes to finding a way through all of this stuff as a caregiver or when you're, dealing with a patient, I would suggest that we just do like Brendan said and say, "Let's go." You just gotta dive in and,
Let's
well, get your little snowplow on, ask for help, take respite if you can, share your feelings, do things you enjoy. These are all, by the way, a list that you put in your Substack. Engage in small luxuries and laugh. And I think that's let's go, and I love that about Brendan saying that. Just jump off that cornice. So,
Yep.
all right, Michelle. Well, is there anything else you want to say to round this out?
No, I'm gonna say that we're gonna try to make these shorter so that people will listen to them.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we can also break them up. So yeah, go ahead and, share in the comments like which parts actually that you liked. If you listened the whole way through, that would help us figure out where to break things up and what content to give you. And of course, we can definitely start breaking these up in smaller versions if that's something that the audience wants to hear. You guys, thanks so much for joining us on another inquiry series, A Way Through. Don't forget to get Michelle's book. It's A Parkinson's Love Story, Your Wildest Dreams. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Please sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. We want to hear from you. So please give us some comments. All right. Have a wonderful one.